Welcome to the second Mentor of Men podcast. And today we have another brand new topic. And it's going to be a bit of an exploratory talk with this guy. I think I have a thing for guys who are named Yves, because my previous guest was also named Yves. Well, I get to know through you. But I wanted to talk about the topic of brotherhood, true brotherhood, and what it actually means. And I was thinking and looking around, like who do I want to interview about this? Who are the people who've written about this? And I've read a couple of books about, for instance, real men's work. But then I thought, I can go to somebody who's about the theory, or I can talk to a guy who truly embodies it for me personally. Because this guy is Yves Konings. And I think I've never experienced brotherhood with anybody as strongly as I have with you. So I figured, why don't we explore this topic together? Because I think we embody what it is, and we understand what it is. And so I feel it, but I had to express that. Yeah? So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit here?
Yeah, well, I was just, enjoying this very honorable mention. Let's name it like that. Yeah. Well, you already said it. My name is Yves. The second Yves on your podcast. Two podcasts, two Yves. 100% Yves score. Well done. And the other Yves is actually also a friend of mine. Yeah. So we all know each other. And I'm introducing myself. Yeah. So I'm a biology teacher. That's my profession. And apart from that, I really enjoy writing. That's a big passion / hobby of mine. And who knows, maybe one day I'll be able to do that professionally too. And apart from that, I've also been exploring this tantric scene, with what you have been talking about, and other Yves. I'll call him other Yves for now, and through that, partly through that, we've also done, of course, we're both participants of the same men's group, which I'm sure we're going to talk about more when we're talking about the issues of brotherhood, what that is, and what that means for us. And what else? Introduction-wise, I think it's good to mention that we're the two of us are really, really good friends. So very close friends, and so that's about it for now. The brotherhood friendship thing. Yeah,
that's a good thing. I didn't mention that we are part of the same men's group for, what is it? Oh, we're heading for 3 years now, I think, right? But anyway, we're called the Warriors men's group. Very interesting, very original name.
Yeah.
But anyway, I always felt a very strong brotherhood within their group as well. With certain people a bit more than with others, but I think that's normal. You have that in life. But anyway, I started exploring this topic, asking some people about what brotherhood means to them. And I thought, why don't I start with actual brothers?
Mm-hmm.
So I just sat down with my kids, and it was quite hard to. Well, it wasn't hard. They were very clear in their answers. But somehow I was myself. I was desiring different kinds of answers. But my kids, my youngest is called Boaz. He's 8 years old, and he said, "What does it mean for you to be brothers?" I asked him, and he said, "Sometimes it's stupid, sometimes it's fun." That was his answer. Okay. And then I asked my older one, he's like, what does it mean for you to be brothers? And he said the same thing. Well, yeah, it's nice. But what does it mean, you know? And he says like, well, that we both crawled out of the same mother. So they take it quite literally, you know, what is brothers? Like, yeah, we're actually brothers by blood. But then I asked them, and when you think, for instance, about soldiers, there's a brotherhood in that, you know? There's even a series called Band of Brothers. And then they said like, well, I think it's because they really like each other. And that's why they feel like brothers, or that they've been together a very long time. So for them, it is about the bonding, or whether that has been established over a long period of time. But yeah, like it made me think about that series, The Band of Brothers, because there's a lot of perseverance in there, and these guys, they've been brothers until they died.
Yeah, but like it's whatever brotherhood might mean. It's quite loosely defined. You know, not to say that these people are not real brothers, like or real brothers. Like they obviously have an amazing brotherhood through which they experience. But like, you know, it's interesting to talk to you know, think about what is it that we're actually talking about. You know, like what is brotherhood? Is that like very close friendship? It might be, or it might be part of it, or is it something else? You know, like where these soldiers.
Tell me, what is it? What does it mean to you?
Well, you know, it's nice that you ask your kids, your two sons who are brothers. Well, I have a brother too, so I mean like a blood brother now, and I do remember that one of the things I remember very vividly was like when we were very young. My mother didn't ask us a question, but she told us like, well, the most important person in your life is your brother. Or sister, of course, but I only had a brother, and I asked why, and she said, "Well, you know, because we are going to die one day. Parents are going to die one day, but your brother is going to be there for your entire life, and it will be the person you know the longest." And no, that really, it always really. How do you say that? Like it always, I never forgot that. It always stayed with me. That phrase, I thought it was a beautiful thing. You know, like as I got older, you know, I thought about it again and again, and yeah, that made a big impression of me. So, and with my brother, I always had an amazing bond. But what brotherhood is for me, like it doesn't have to be only with my blood brother, obviously. But I guess it's very interesting, you know, like, and that's why it's exploring conversation, but to really point it down. But one of the things that for me that is very, very important is that there's almost no, how do you say this in English? Concurrency.
Competitiveness.
Yeah, no
competition.
Competition between me and the people that I consider to be my brothers, or with which I experience brotherhood with, because you know, because that's just not the way I want to relate to these people, not to these men who are very close to me. And I experienced that, you know, a relationship is always a dance between two people, obviously. And if you refuse to be competitive with someone, in general, most people will not be competitive with you neither. You know, people are usually only competitive towards each other if both of them are doing it. If you just simply stop and refuse to do that, then you know, and then the competitiveness isn't there. when I was at high school, I had like a big bunch of friends, and we were always hanging out. And there was also a bit of a tough guy attitude there, being tough towards the entire world, like everyone around you, when you went partying, the people you met, or the teachers, or whatever. But also there was like this tough attitude to inwards too, between all these close friends, actually. But not so much with me. Like I had my moments also with competitiveness towards other guys, but I didn't really participate in that much. And I already felt then that for a lot of guys it was therefore more easy and more safe to relate with me. Making the side note there that's my experience. Like they might say something else, but that's how I perceived it. Yeah. So there's your first little answer. What's brotherhood?
Yeah, when you said there's no competition between brothers, I for instance, I really feel the embodiment of that with you. Sometimes we even like the same women, but in the end, like there's like our friendship is holy in this relationship, towards a woman, for instance. Like I would never, that's for me like a given. I would never interfere in that. I would never put our friendship at stake. And like a lot of the guys have this, like these good old sayings like bros before hoes, or girls say sisters before misters, and not a whole and are like very respectful to the other gender, I guess. But I do feel that I don't want to do that. And I haven't felt that with all men in my life. A lot of the times I do feel competition with other guys. But I also feel that sets a foundation of inequality, that we are trying to surpass the other one to say like, hey, I matter, or I'm better, or that somehow we have to give a certain value to who we are compared to somebody else. And I find that very tiring these days. Maybe I'm just getting maybe I'm just getting old, but I don't want to do it anymore. And sometimes I still perceive it. I've seen it also even within our men's group where I sort of hope that wouldn't be an issue, but I think it's just an issue amongst men. But I also feel it eats away at the foundation of true brotherhood.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I think first that it's important to separate two forms of competitiveness here first. Like you have competitiveness in the sense that someone just wants to prove to you that he's better in a particular skill or whatever. Like, you can have competitiveness like, well, I want to be able to earn more money than you, or, I want to be better at this. I want to be more muscled than you, or whatever. And then there's the other competitiveness, and that is for say, for instance, a woman. Like it's not necessarily the case that, if two guys like the same woman, they're not proving to each other like, hey, you see, I can win this one. What they might be doing that, but they may also be simply, I love you, my friend, but I really want to be with this woman, and that's a different form of competitiveness, which with also different results or effects, you might say. So, which for a lot of guys is like, that's not a safe area, So there are a lot of guys who are friends, and and they genuinely love each other. But then if there's a woman there, basically what they're saying is like, well, I love you, but I love myself more. So, I'm actually really, I'm putting our friendship aside because, I want to conquer this woman, or I want to, her to be my girlfriend, or whatever it is they want. Or it might also be just a sexual experience, or whatever. And I think that's one of the feelings that makes guys feel unsafe, very unsafe. and also because
yeah. So now it reminds me of this saying, all is fair in love and war.
Yeah.
I look at the world today, like brothers, like these people were like brothers for such a long time, you know, even in war. In the end, like a couple of guys, old guys leading a country, they decide, okay, we're going to war with each other. And then it's just the brothers, the guys are killing each other, you know. But this is one of the reasons why I never joined the military. I almost did. I really saw myself as a soldier, like, and I always had a fascination. I think because of the brotherhood in military, that I was really, I don't know what it is. It's something that you see in the bonding between men in that area that I really like. But in the end, like that was very attractive to me. But on the other hand, also like the competitive nature of it. It's just really excelling and really pushing yourself, being good and being challenged. But in the end, I became sort of a little pacifist pretty early on in my life, and that I thought like I don't want to kill anybody ever, you know. And why, like, if you would put a gun in my hands and would tell me like go there and shoot the other guys, you know. I had friends from Germany, German friends, and I thought like, what if I go back 60 years, you know, and then all of a sudden like, will we be killing each other just like that? People do it all the time in war, you know. All of a sudden they've been neighbors for years, like you saw in former Yugoslavia, and all of a sudden like a week later they kill their neighbor because he's from some group, you know. So this is the thing, like in war, all of a sudden we do it. We kill each other off. We're not loyal anymore. And in love as well. When it comes to women, the best of friends, they'll betray each other. And I find it, I don't know, man, it makes me fucking sad. When I see that happen, I think, well, why do we have to do this? Why do we do that? What are we trying to prove to whom?
Well, like if we're proving, that would be like my first category of competitiveness. But it might, in a lot of cases, it's not about proving. It's just about like, you know, I love you, my brother, but I love myself more. So, and I want this woman, you know. So it's your personal gain there, which is like, which is understandable. That you would do that, but I think for a lot of guys it's just not safe, you know, like, hey, we're friends, but like whenever a woman might come into play, then all of a sudden, you know, there's this form of competitiveness there, and yeah, like if a friend, you know, got betrayed by another friend, or he felt betrayed by another friend, it might be very difficult for him to, you know, find brotherhood or friends somewhere else later, you know, and it might be very, very hurtful. And I'm not saying that in any case you should put your brotherhood above, you know, a woman or whatever, but often it's just like, I think what often happens is like a guy who feels in love with. So let's make it a little bit more clear. Say, you know, you have guy 1 and guy 2, and they both fall in love with the same woman. You know? And guy 1 and 2, they're very close friends, or they feel this brotherhood kind of bonding. You know, then you're like in the middle of something. You know, like people are gonna get hurt. So if you would follow your heart and conquer this woman, your brother is going to get hurt. But if you don't, then you're going to get hurt because you actually love this woman, and then you have to see your friends with this particular woman. And therein, you know, I think a lot of what goes wrong there is people not owning up there, like not taking responsibility. So you know, people will kind of, you know, not really say that they're in love, or then just kind of be, you know, how do you say that? Just they won't own it. They will do. They're
not vulnerable.
Yeah, but they will also do a little bit in a sneaky way, you know, to try to save both relationships often. but only making it worse. So that's a problem there. But for me personally, and I'm not advocating everyone to do that, but that's just how I look at it. Like if I see a woman which I like, who is also engaged with one of my brothers or friends in a particular way, it's just a very simple question for me to ask myself, like, would I want to jeopardize my relationship with this man for this woman? And the answer is always no. Like, and I can imagine, like, if you really
have you never said yes to that question? Be honest.
Yeah. I don't think so. Like, I'm actually like going back a little bit. Maybe at the end of the podcast, I'll get a phone call of some guy said, like, you're not owning up. But no, I don't think so. No. And but also because if you're really in love with someone, you might do that. But like, you don't really fall in love with someone just like that, just like in a minute, and so that's basically that. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we're really getting into the topic of competition now, but of course, like it's so much bigger than that. Brotherhood. I like one of our brothers. He sent us a picture this week from a men's coach. He's been he's been in the men's group. I think it was with Brian Reeves, right? And he
what is in the picture?
Yeah, like the picture is I can't put it on screen because I think it's copyrighted. But anyway, I can talk about it. They have like 3 pillars in there as a group, as brothers. And one is accountability. The other one is agreements and integrity. And the third is vulnerability. And I really like the way that was set up. Because it's really about fostering trust amongst these brothers. And how you can move against these 3 pillars. But one of the things I think that really speaks to me from this mental model is when we think about vulnerability amongst men, I really see there's a huge issue in the friendships I've had over the years, I think, to have really deep bonding friendships. Because a lot of the times, men don't get really vulnerable with each other. And the connection and the friendships I've had with men are usually, when I look back now, have been very superficial. Until I think up to 7 years ago. But it was usually a lot about work. They talk about sports, or the girls they've been dating, or the amount of like the sex they've had. And like, it's a lot of the time it's very ego driven. But it's not, men don't really talk like women do, They don't really put the stuff on the table and say like, I'm not doing so well, and this is why. Or they have vulnerable confrontations with each other, I still have a hard time doing that, because a lot of the times when, for instance, some guy wants to, there's an example, a guy, him, who wanted to date an ex-girlfriend of mine. And I felt like, yeah, that's okay. I was really like bypassing my own emotions here. I wasn't even sure how I felt about it. I think I did, but I didn't want to admit to it. So in the end, I didn't want to show my vulnerability to him. And I felt I was cutting myself short. And then even setting myself up for a scenario in where competition could ensue. And I don't want that. I should know better, but still I step into that trap. And still then I have to repair it, and I have to come clean to him later on. And I did, and that felt good. And I think that's where the deeper bonding lied with us. I think that I own up to my own fuck up there, and that I was hurting because of it, and that didn't even know why, but the fact that I did made us grow closer. And still, a lot of work has to be done there, I think. I hope it will all turn out well, because I have to admit, like, I really love this guy, and I think I'm starting to love him more. But we're not owning. Most of the times, I think what I experience from my own experience is that what is in the way of real deep, true brotherhood is really getting real with ourselves and sharing that with the other guys. And that's why I love men's work. This is why I love brotherhoods, these groups like we're in, that we aspire to be like that in those groups. And still, you know, even if we have talented groups like we have right now, it's a challenge. And sometimes I still feel like, oh man, we're still not really there. You know, we still have to learn so much and practice so much of this stuff in exposing ourselves and getting real with ourselves, and then getting real with others. But even just to just starting out and owning up to your own inner process, and then taking the next step and sharing it with other guys. It's a lot of work for a lot of us. And I still feel a lot of us aren't really acknowledging that it has to be done, or that we're maybe not still doing it completely, or
so well, yeah, I agree. But so one of the things you really point out there is vulnerability for men to. It's very important for a bond of brotherhood to develop, to be vulnerable, is what you're saying, or that's how I understand it. So why do you think it's so difficult for men then to become vulnerable towards each other, from man to man?
Why is it so difficult? Because I think it sounds kind of cliche from everything that we talk about, but in the end, we've grown up with the opposite injunctions. You know, the messages that we've heard is to man up, to be tough, and especially from other guys. You know, it were our own fathers that told us that we had to be strong and like not pussyfoot and push on and don't cry. And in the end, like, I think it just put a lid on a lot of stuff that we actually need to talk about. And the fact is, I think we are extra afraid compared to women to talk about these things, because we have been told it's not okay to be like that. And still, like, we are in these safe containers with other men, which we call a men's group, where it's welcome. And I know it's welcome, you know. And the last couple of times you've seen it happen with me, I think I really touched upon a certain part within myself that I think I'm actually come to the point that I'm able to do this. I'm finally able to admit to my own weaknesses, the things I'm struggling with that are really hurting me sometimes. And I'm able to share them and to expose them to the group. And that means I'm crying there. And I never cried in my life. I hardly ever cried. Only when somebody died who was very close to me, I couldn't contain it, and then I would let it flow. But I've always had the idea, like, I have to keep it in. I have to be strong. And I had this idea, my own conviction about what it was to be strong. But even in these groups where it's welcome, and now I do, even then I always feel a bit of shame. I feel it, but I don't admit, I don't let it rule the way I express myself. But it's there, man.
You feel it, yeah.
I always feel like weakness inside myself when and that's, for me, that's the biggest battle we have to fight as men.
So well, it sums up there in your last sentence. You know, you feel weakness when you're being vulnerable, when you're opening up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, congratulations for opening up then and stepping into that vulnerability. No, I really like
Yeah,
that's
thanks.
that. Yeah, well, that's amazing, and I hear what you're saying also about what we learned as men, collectively. Um, like the phrase like "men don't cry," for instance, like that's basically, I think, an invitation to say, all right, so men prop it all up, hide it all under the carpet, and
Yeah, that's what we have learned, right? It's like you have to be guarded, you have to be walled up, you have to wear a mask or create an identity, things like that. But it's tiring, man.
Yeah. It's like you're carrying it around instead of being able to put it down. And correct me if I'm misphrasing you, but I think you told me once that before you met a lot of the guys from our men's group, that before you were kind of always, in some sense, looking or searching for men to relate with in the way you're relating with men now. So you are still aware of that you are actually like longing for that kind of bond with other men, right?
Yeah. In my previous men's group, we had a talk about like, what is it exactly you want out of this group? So, and it was very different for everybody in the group. For me, I knew immediately, like, I want to redefine how I relate to men. Yeah. I was looking for a deeper bonding with guys that I don't know, I find it really hard to find in this world. And but for me, it's something I envy from other cultures. And we live in Holland, and we're very practical and direct and honest. But also, I feel like a lot of guys here, they don't have the connection, for instance, that you see amongst Turkish guys. If you go to a Turkish center here, you see all these men, they come together at night and they just sit there and drink tea and play games. Yeah, and they just hang out with each other. A lot of the times that's really like a culture. Yeah. And I miss that sometimes, man. I think like, wow, that's super nice, just get together with the guy. I found it once in fucking online gaming. That's so, you didn't even see each other. The beauty of that was you couldn't see each other. It was really only verbal communication, which was interesting though. Then a year later, I met all of them, and like one of them was a judge, and then the other guy, they played together every night. He was Hell's Angel, and like we found a brotherhood without having all our preconceptions and judgments about each other because we couldn't see each other. But that was really, really beautiful. And but in the end, I don't know, man. I think for the first time in my life, I really found it, like in our friendship. And that makes me think about, like, when we talk about the bonding also within our men's group. When I think about Brotherhood, I feel very committed to this group. So that means I really make an effort to be there always. I will not miss a meeting. And if there's work, fuck work. Work can wait, or I'll make it wait. But also, if somebody's not doing well, like we recently saw in our group, I really feel a commitment to be there for that person because he is my brother. We've committed to this as a group. And sometimes I'm a bit disappointed as well about this because I also sort of implicitly hope that the other guys have the same feeling about it, that the way we support each other as men in this group as something holy, something sacred. And still, I think then I miss it. Maybe I have such a high standard, I think, in certain things in life, or expectation or hopes for it. That I really hope the men in the world, or maybe in our country at least, or in our Western world, could share that ambition with me, and I don't feel they do, and that sometimes feels kind of lonely.
Yeah, well, I think in the end, there you touch on another area, which is like accountability. Like we're there for each other. It's brotherhood. We can count on each other when stuff gets rough. And I think that part of men related to each other. I think that's there a lot also or maybe not a lot, but I think that's quite common here in the Netherlands. That's basically one of the essentials of a gang.
That's a good point. Yeah,
absolutely. Like the brotherhood, and I'm not necessarily saying like not necessarily a gang of gangsters or whatever, but just like I also experienced that very much when I was at high school with all my friends there. We could really count on each other. Like when there was like one of us was in a fight or whatever, we were always there for each other, but not the vulnerable part. And maybe it's exactly these things that don't go well together, or they appear to not go well together, because like if you're like in a men's group and everyone can count on each other, so everyone's kind of like a tough guy, and and I think that's where really the bros before hoes attitude comes from. And I think for a lot of guys it feels like that's not compatible with being also very vulnerable, and like the bros before hoes code is like quite disrespectful, and already shows like we're being macho, we're being tough guy, and we're not being vulnerable, or I think that's also one of the things which might attract people in motor gangs or whatever, like that they're with the guys together, and it's like this holy place. And I'm not in a motorcycle club, so obviously maybe there might be vulnerable stuff there too, but which I'm not aware of. But in their attitude, they don't show that to the rest of the world, for sure.
Yeah, they're very, very loyal. It's very much about loyalty. But in motor gangs, on the other hand, like it's also very dangerous. If you don't follow the rules, oh my god.
Yeah. But like like it's I think you can say for a guy, it's like it's in these negative gangs, or these dangerous gangs, it might be bad for a guy to be in a gang, but it might be worse to be how do you say that, to be not accepted in a gang. And it's very important for these men to be together and have something together. And obviously it's for society better if it's something not like a motorcycle gang or a hooligan gang, but something which actually contributes something important, but that's another issue. But like this loyal thing, I think that for a lot of guys is there until, for instance, there comes a woman there, like we discussed before.
Love and war.
And but then you have this vulnerable thing and vulnerability thing, and it is very, very important for men to be able to be vulnerable towards each other, not only for each other, but also in the way they relate to their partners, because like there's a lot of vulnerable things in my life which I share with you, for instance, and with with some other close friends, and it's very nice to be able to talk about it. You understand some of these things I'm going through, and you're able to feedback them. And women do that too. But if I wouldn't do that, then then I might only be able to be vulnerable with my partner, and then she get all my vulnerable stuff, all of it, and that might be way too much for a relationship to carry. So it's very important to be also. Do you hear the noise?
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah. I'll close the window. Just one little second.
no, it's fine. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm here again. But so it's very important, because then otherwise you give it all to your partner maybe, and but also for some other reason, it's like if you discuss it with among guys, your vulnerable stuff, it's also you're practicing to be able to talk about your vulnerable stuff, and so that's the second very important reason, because, well, a lot of women, they say one version of, well, guys are not able to talk about their feelings. Like, yeah, well, we never practiced, between each other, and a lot of women did, and so yeah, I think that's also a reason for men, a very important one to well, yeah. I made my point.
No, I think this really touches upon a paramount issue. Why you would need brotherhood? Like, if you really want to foster deep relationship with a woman, you can't use her as your therapist. You really have to think about what you share with her, when you share it, and also with whom you share it. And this is where we really need strong men on our side. Yeah,
because you also have like this stereotypical situation that a woman's like trying to open up a guy like for a while, and then in the end she succeeds, and then this guy just pours out so much, and for us, like, okay, whoa, take it easy, it's way too much. Like, and it's understandable from both sides, but it's not very productive in a lot of situations. It's very sad results, obviously, like for women.
Oh yeah. That's the difference, I think, between sharing and complaining. And when you're with your partner and you just like the verbal diarrhea, like if you just let it pour out, like don't do that in your relationship. Of course you can have a shitty day, and sometimes you just have to share about it. But in the end, like, when we're really talking about the struggles we have in our relationship, it really can be very beneficial to have a strong group of guys to talk about those issues, instead of just bringing everything home. Your partner is not your mommy as well. And also in the end, you have to be able to share and be vulnerable, but also be able to carry yourself as a man, I think. And what I see a lot with men's coaches these days, like a lot of times I'm not able to follow them anymore on social media, because I think how you sometimes call it a wet fart. Like, oh my God, all these guys like using social media platforms as a platform to just throw every emotion they feel out there, and just put it in there. Like, I'm a guy, and I already feel like that's so unattractive, like we need our men to also take this shit towards them, and discuss it with them, and also hold us accountable to the things that we want to pour out. But like, we also have to carry ourselves, and I think a men's group or brotherhood really gives us an opportunity to connect to these deeper things, and have it in a container amongst men, and channel it there and get the feedback on that there, instead of it that we just always have to sort of run back to mommy and always need a woman to be able to process this stuff that's coming up, if we are even able to feel it and share it with somebody. So yeah, I don't think we always have to take it back to our partners. We have to think about who we share what with and how it fosters us as men.
Yeah, well, I completely agree with all the things you said, and obviously there's like it's important to share vulnerable stuff, but there's like there's the dark side of it, that you share way too much, or you're just going to complain, and or as you called it, it will become verbal diarrhea. Absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, from the position of a man who has never been vulnerable with other men, like, it's like, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's understandable that it might happen. If you finally then open up, there might be still so much stuff from years that you have been hiding, and it just comes out. you know. And I'm not saying if it's a good or bad thing. I don't think it's a good thing, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. I'm just saying, like, that's something that might happen. And then for a woman, and she's right in that, it might be too much, she'll back off. And the guy thinks like, well, you know, I was right to be not vulnerable, because look what happens now, and it will be even more difficult to be vulnerable, you know. So that's one of the reasons I think it's just important to be vulnerable also, with other people. And well, we're focusing on men. It might also be, if you're lucky, with your sister or a parent or a teacher or whatever. But I think that's a second important reason, not necessarily in that order. And the third one is also that, you know, if you're, say for instance, if you're going to be vulnerable about your relationship, you want to share something vulnerable about your relationship, and you only do that with your partner, well, then you're, you know, you're talking something through with you and your partner, or both people who are very invested in that relationship. So if you're talking, if you'll be able to talk with a good close friend or brother about whatever is bothering you, you know, then you have a pair of eyes on the issue, which is of a person who is not personally invested in there. It's like a neutral view, you know, and that's also very, very important too, you know.
I think you touch upon the second pillar of accountability, because what I see a lot of the times in people who are friends is that they sort of, what loyalty means to them is that they will always support their friend, even if the friend is, like even if the friend is also in the wrong, you know. So for instance, a lot of the times what you see, for instance, with women, a guy has cheated and the women are like, oh girl, like fuck that motherfucker. They never, like, what to me is a brother versus a friend is somebody who says like, well, what is actually happening in the relationship? Are you showing up, you know? Somebody who's challenging me on my integrity or on my role in the relationship, for instance, in a case like that. So somebody who's willing to really serve me to grow from a certain situation instead of just always having my back, you know? I think that's also, it's the same thing as having somebody's back, but really having somebody's interest at heart instead of just saying you're loyal. So like, I think you are really good at that. Like you are somebody who's challenging me in a very loving way. So maybe that's because you're a teacher. You are really good at like giving positive feedback. So you said like, yeah, I really hear what you're saying. And I also agree with that. And I think you're doing really well in this and this and this. But I also see you do this and this and this.
Yeah.
Well, how do you feel about that? I'm like, oh, motherfucker. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. But I love you for it. I think it makes you a really good friend, because you are a friend, or like you are a brother that is really putting accountability on the table towards me. So you challenge me in the things I say, the things I pursue, or the relationship I am pursuing, or yeah. So you're giving me the questions and the feedback that I think are very important for accountability. So else, you know, I would be like isolating parts of myself, you know, or you would help me bury my blind spots. They wouldn't be exposed. You would help me paint a pretty picture about myself. You don't do that. Well, sometimes you really help me also see the positive sides of me that I don't want to see, or that I'm downplaying. And I think that's also something you do really, really well.
Yeah, well, again, thanks for the nice words. And yeah, like, I think, you know, actually being a good friend and a good brother, an important part of that is also calling someone out when someone is like, you know, doing something not very nice, or you know, whatever it is, you know, or pointing someone on a particular pattern he or she is you know, following, and therefore, you know, might trouble his or her relationships. You know, you gotta point that out. I think that's absolutely a way of giving love and support, because otherwise, someone might just make the same mistake over and over again. And obviously, like, yeah, it's only my point of view. I don't know if I'm right, but that's what I'm seeing, and I like to share that. And so yeah, and but always keep in mind when you're doing that is, why are you doing that? Like, is it that you're pointing something out because you're annoyed by something or whatever? And if you're doing that, I don't think it's clean. I think it's important to remind yourself, if necessary. Usually, it's not necessary to remind yourself that, but like, hey, I fucking love this person. I want to see him or her grow, and so that's why I'm pointing this stuff out. And yeah, like, that's, I think it's very important, also to see from your friends that they're happy for you when you're flourishing, whatever it is. If it might be a personal relationship or work-wise or whatever, and then but sometimes it might be quite confrontating. And I almost always, there's good stuff, and sometimes there's stuff which I think can still improve. And I always start with the good stuff, but that's just a little rule I learned also in teaching. Like, because sometimes you might say something very confrontating, and it's always nice to first say, like, hey, you're doing a good job on this, but on this, there might be still something you're missing or whatever it is. And so that's just a practical thing, and you combine those things together. Yeah, there's something else I want to say, I forgot. So
yeah, maybe we should do a podcast about giving feedback, because I was like, you are the grand master of it. Like, you're so good at it. And I have I'm pretty sensitive to certain kinds of feedback. I'm open to it now nowadays pretty well, but in the past, my father always gave me constructive criticism, as he called it, and I would call it fuck all. Like, oh, here he goes again. I would give it a finger, and I would check out, and I would stop listening. Everything before but is bullshit. That's what I always say, and. But yeah, somehow you found a way to reach me, and that I listen, and I actually take it too hard what you're saying. And yeah, I think you have a superpower there, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah, but and I think I remember the other point I wanted to make. I think that's a very important one too. It's like sometimes you want to help someone out, and then you're saying like, right. So there are two ways, like very simplified. I think there are two ways to help someone out. It's like saying, you stop doing this, which might be negative, or do more of this. And whenever possible, I like to say, do more of this. And I think a lot of our culture is based around, we say, stop doing this to improve your relationship or whatever it is, and often it's quite, in a lot of topics, it's necessary to say that. But it's very deep in our culture. I think so I'm a teacher, and I have to say to a lot of kids often, all right, stop doing that, and I say it with love, but I still say that, stop being on your phone all the time. Otherwise, you're not going to pay attention, and you're not going to learn, or whatever it is, But it's very important also to say, do more of this. And then you have to explain why. And and I think that's one of the areas you touched on. And then sometimes you get a little, shy by that, or you don't even believe me when I say, like, wow, you have to do more of this. But I don't just say that. I explain to you, like, why this part of you is just amazing. Like, why you're doing like such a good job on something, and then that's nice to share in the first place, to say, wow, I think this is amazing about you. But sometimes it also has a function to say, so keep on doing that, do more of that, and like for a lot of people that's just too much. And I mean, like, they're always very flattered, but they'll get shy and they don't believe you. It's like, you're just trying to stop it. Like, stuff like that. And yeah,
Oh, stop it.
yeah. Well, no, but like they really get like that. It's like, stop, even the tough guys. And they just don't want to take it in. And though they're very good at taking in the negative stuff, and sometimes they're very good at, getting upset about it. But like, and then we say something nice about someone, like, and it's more than nice. It's like, wow, this is very inspiring. This is one of the reasons why.
But still, I think it's maybe even bound to our culture, maybe, because the Dutch, they can bitch and moan about everything, really. We Dutch call ourselves azijnzeikers, like we piss vinegar. And we're just used to bitch and moan about everything, Also, if you are really conditioned in that way, also like I'm really used to just receiving criticism instead of getting praise, that I get used to it. I think like even my brain is just wired for it, So if I get, I felt like I even picked my partners on this sometimes, that just they would replay some pattern that I was used to. Because it was familiar, but it wasn't good for me. It's not nice. And then if somebody does what you do, you just described, it just feels off. You're like, no. You're like, or even mentally, I can say like, yeah, I'll take it in. I'll absorb it. But some part of me emotionally is like, yeah, but no, that's not right, is it? Or it feels uncomfortable. I think a lot of people suffer from this. They feel uncomfortable with somebody saying something nice about them.
Yeah.
And isn't that just fucking sad?
Yeah. And then to nuance a little bit, like often they feel uncomfortable in a good way, they're flattered and all that, but they're just like, it's like, it is sad. Yeah. But it's also like, then sometimes they just don't believe the best of them.
Yeah. And deep down, almost everybody wants to hear it. But on the other hand, we have a hard time hearing it.
Yeah, but it has to be very pure, obviously. Like, because I mean to say that like, I think for some people, they won't even trust you when you say that. It's like, all right, what do you need from me? What do you want? What do you need? Like I'm also a teacher. And for instance, last week I had a kid, and the kid had a car accident a while ago, and got like in Holland we call it a hersenschudding, so
concussion.
Yeah. And but still, she managed to like get. She went to school all the time, and she had like the best math grades and all that, and I didn't know, but after a while I just found out that she had that, and she was still like doing that. And like I heard her parents sometimes had to keep her in the school because she just wanted to go there, and so that's like she was not being a victim at all, like I mean not a victim attitude at all, and just going for it and get these nice grades. So I was so impressed by the story that for two reasons, I decided to buy a little present. I just bought some chocolate, and I gave it to her, and I explained it very well. Like, all right, one of the reasons because I give this to you is because I just feel sorry for having this car accident, but the other one is like, I'm so impressed by what you're doing here, and like, well, she was just like very flattered, obviously, and thank you, and it really made a day, and well, that was all nice. But like the thing I'm actually trying to achieve there is like, okay, you're doing something very, very nice. So I want to stimulate more of that, and I want to show that I'm impressed, and so I'm trying to teach there by being well, doing the feedback thing in more of this instead of stop doing that whenever I can, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's interesting. I use a dual approach in agile coaching in creative teams and companies, and there we have the sort of it's we use a dual version of this. So we have like more of this things people like, but also things they have to stop doing or do less of. So we have these three categories, and a lot of the times it's interesting how this works and how our brain is wired. Because the things we have to stop or do less of, people like can come up with it immediately. They're really good at that. But we do have a hard time seeing the positive things. Usually those things are filled out the last. That's what I see with my teams. And it's kind of sad again, but still like from an evolutionary, maybe you as a biologist have an idea about this, but from an evolutionary standpoint or view, they say it makes sense because our brains are wired to see threats, to see the negative things that might go wrong, that might endanger us. And still, like right now, we live in a society. We're not gonna be eaten by a tiger. Well, chances are fairly slim, I guess. And still, we are looking out for threats and danger all the time, things that might be negative. And it still reflects on the way we relate.
Yeah. Well,
so what does the biology teacher say about that?
Well, I don't really know, but like to be honest, like really, I wouldn't really know that, but look, but just to clarify, like I'm not saying at all it's a bad thing to say stop doing that. But I'm just saying like it's not a good thing to only receive that kind of feedback. So also, like for instance, in relationships, when relationships go wrong, it's quite often that and I mean intimate relationships. Now, it's quite often that both partners, they're like angry at each other, and they have a whole list of you need to stop doing this, you need to stop doing that, you need to stop doing that. Though, and these points need to be made, but it might be way more constructive to start the conversation with, wow, I love to see more of this. And say 10 things that like, wow, this is just amazing about you. This is why I love you. I want to see more of that. And then also say like, well, this doesn't really work for me. And well, you probably already say it because you say something positive, something changes in your attitudes, your body, and like, it's not going to be like, fucking stop doing this, but you're more likely to say like, well, and this I don't really like, or whatever it is. And that's very important, but like that's often not the way people relate there. Like they say like, well, you need to stop doing that. And so it's like both ways of feedback are very important. And again, you start with the positive thing. Like
right. I'm gonna cut you short because we are really going into
the
feedback instead of like about brotherhood, and it's fucking interesting. Like I already said, maybe we should do another podcast about how do you give feedback.
Okay. So back to the brotherhood.
Back to the brotherhood. I want to talk about commitment.
All right.
So I think it's a very big topic. For me, it's something that I even want to use my men's group for commitments. So like I feel super committed to the men's group. Yeah. So for me, I'll really go out of my way to make sure I can be there. But when we talk about commitment to the things in our own lives, right now I use a coach, and I use you, and I use, well, mainly those two. Yeah. So a coach and you to pursue my commitments. So to be held accountable. And I think this is a really powerful thing that we can do as brothers. I think it's a part of being brothers or of brotherhood, is that we keep each other in check. We keep each other accountable on the things that we, as brothers amongst each other, find important. that we check in with each other or call each other out. And also, like, if I commit to something that's important to me, I want to achieve something, that my brother is also checking in on me, like, how's that going? You know, do you want to commit to something? That we even challenge each other in these commitments to grow. How do you feel? Is this part of brotherhood?
Well, yeah, it can be, absolutely. But can you give a specific example?
I think, like, for instance, agreements. I'm really. You're writing a book, yeah, and you identify even with being a writer, apart from being a teacher. And for me, like, I want to see you progress there. So I feel like, how's the writing been going? You know, I ask you, and what is, like, how much do you want to achieve? So I'm even I'm even bringing in my own knowledge as an agile coach to see how can I get you further. And also, I'll ask you if you want to commit somewhere to some amount of work. For instance, do you want to achieve something? And I'll help you. You know, I'll check in with you. Or, for instance, a while ago, I offered you to, and we did that we would come together on Thursday night and you would write on your book, and I would work on my writing. So we held each other accountable. We would push each other to a next chapter in our life.
I get your point. In that sense, I absolutely feel that accountability is part of brotherhood. Yeah, because I feel like, you know, you get to know your friend, your brother, and you know what is important for him. You know what kind of goals he wants to achieve, and so these are the things that will make him happy. So of course you want him to be there, to become there, to get there. That's what I mean. You want him to get to that particular situation. So you call him out on it. Absolutely. Like, hey, how is that going? And are you actually doing that? And not by just saying like, oh, you're not doing that, like that's not good. But also like support someone to actually, go work on his dream, his writing, or whatever it is, Yeah.
But also if we make certain transgressions, yeah. So if we see like misbehavior or things like what you're doing right now is not okay, that's also holding somebody accountable, right?
Yeah. And again, that's also part of brotherhood. Yeah. If you're not doing that, you're sugarcoating.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel the lack of true brotherhood in our modern society is also maybe at the cause of a lot of transgressions of men these days. So we don't really call each other out these days anymore, I think. When we see misbehavior in the street or if somebody's catcalling, most people, they just let it go, right?
Yeah.
And I also see women, they're calling out to men, like it's time that men step up and hold each other accountable. And I find it kind of disappointing that it has come this far. That we're being called out by women to do this amongst ourselves. Because clearly, I feel it. I think we need to change that. We have to improve on that.
Yeah, well, I don't think, or I don't know if it necessarily got worse than before. But apart from that, apart from that, I agree with you. I wouldn't say that's the brotherhood we're talking about. I think the brotherhood we're talking about is like men who have a very close relationship. But still, like if a random guy is misbehaving, then absolutely I feel like another guy should say something about it if he sees that. But it's also easier said than done, because when guys do that, there's obviously instantly a threat of violence there. And so if some bigger guy is misbehaving in the street and you're calling him out and you kind of already know, or you're afraid of that the guy will beat you up, then it's quite understandable for a lot of guys that they won't do that. Yeah. So I agree with you in theory. Yeah. But stuff is more complex than that.
It is.
Yeah.
Still, like the whole idea of a brotherhood of men.
Yeah, you mean it in a very broad sense, just all men.
Yeah, it even applies to this sense, like the example I just gave. Because in the end, like I want to be able to step up to every guy and like, listen, brother, you know, and I'm not gonna call them brother because sometimes it's like like bro sounds better because like in the end, like, oh god, I see it in spiritual communities all the time that people are like, brother, like, good dude, I don't even know you. And even I feel like a little bit held back, but in the end, I do want that connection with other men, you know. Oh yeah, maybe I'm also resisting it a bit.
Well, but in the broader sense that you're painting here, like I agree. Like I agree that men should call men out on misbehavior. I agree on that, but I also agree that what you're saying now, that it would be amazing if that would happen in a brotherly sense. Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't happen in this particular moment in time. But I do agree with you.
Yeah. It's how did we get here? I think it's because I mentioned integrity, right? And it's
accountability.
Yeah, well, it taps into accountability, I guess, because as men, integrity we can help each other in our integrity. Sometimes we can't, you know. I also broke off friendships because of, well, just one major friendship because I felt that part was lacking, and I couldn't get where I wanted to be. And also just sometimes shutting a door is also maybe the right thing to do. But integrity there was something I was struggling with. And I wanted to hold him accountable, but I wasn't able to. And
what do you mean? So you said the things you want to say, but he didn't listen, or you just kept it to yourself?
I was putting down boundaries. So like even once when we went out, I told him, like, dude, you're about to get your ass beat here, you know? And like if that happens, I think he even deserve it. I wanted to be his brother there, but I told him as a brother, like, you're really transgressing here, and like you need to stop this shit right now. And if you get in a fight, I'm not gonna help you. And that was a really hard one, because on the other hand, like some friends that just, whatever happens, they will be there, they will fight, even if the guy's really doing something wrong, you know?
Yeah, but that's a recipe for like getting manipulated. If you say something, whatever you do, whatever it is, I'll have your back.
Yeah,
you're basically saying, okay, you can do whatever you want, and you know that's crazy. Like, so I think now you're talking more about a friendship kind of brotherhood here, and like you know, deep friendship is a beautiful thing, but you know, it's something in a sense you deserve from each other, because you're both, you know, acting towards each other and the world around you in a particular way, you know. And if someone is starting to misbehave, then and completely do other stuff, then so be, you know, rude to other people, to women or men or whatever, you know, like, well, then he doesn't deserve your friendship or your loyalty in that particular sense.
Yeah. Anyway, don't want to go too deep into this, because we're gonna go into a really big tangent again, I think, if we do that.
All right.
Almost done with the COVID, I think.
Oh yeah. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is an issue you like to touch still?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I don't have a lot of things left, I think. Do you have anything coming up based on what we just talked about?
Well, one thing I wanted to mention before is that, you know, I feel like there are a lot of men who want a particular relationship with other men, like you did before, but they don't have them, and they might not really know where to find them. You know, I met some of my best friends on festivals and all that kind of stuff, but you know, a lot of people don't do that, or they don't go to places where they meet a lot of people, and they might have friendship that might seem very superficial, but they don't know anyone else. And their irony there is like they might feel like, well, every conversation is about work and money and whatever, very superficial. But the other guy might feel the same way. But a while ago, I was assisting at a retreat for men, and it was about intimacy and sexuality. We were talking about that and doing exercise about that. And so these men, they showed up there. They came to this retreat, which I always think is amazing, because they're basically saying, all right, we're coming here to be vulnerable. And they did. So they talked about the sexual lives and stuff there. You know, they feel ashamed about, or whatever it was, and they felt so amazed that the other guys there, they had the same things. That was just amazing for them. But also to tell about it between 10 guys that they never met before.
Yeah.
And then other guys were doing that too. And then these conversations came up, and like, you know, at the end, you know, like we asked, like, all right, what are some of the stuff that was very valuable about this retreat for you? And a lot of the guys, they just said, well, to be able to talk with men about this. And, you know, well, that touched me very deeply. But also, I think if I would have said right there, like, okay, well, we're going to make a men's group with these men right now. Right now, like, we're going to be in a group, and this is our phone now. We'll make an ad group, and we're going to come together and talk about this. Like, they would have been on board, you know? But like, so
I get it.
Guys long for that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like a while ago, I was at a birthday, and the birthday girl, she asked me to lead 2 hours before it started. There was one guy who was going to lead a workshop with the men, sinking into their bodies and doing some exercises they had never done before. And it was pretty vulnerable stuff. And then the guy fell ill, and she asked me to step in and do it. But also here, these guys, they'd never done anything like it, you know. I had to teach them about energetic penetration. And I went there like, oh fuck, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna teach them? But like, I went there and it just flowed beautifully. And these guys at the end, they just really opened up. But it's just, if somebody, it's like the first crazy dancing guy in a club. You know, if nobody's dancing, there's also one person who has to do it, and then you get the first follower. And the thing, it's the same thing with men showing up like that, because I think we all hold back because we are afraid we're going to get judged. But the other guy has the same issue. And then if one person makes the change and starts doing it, the guys who are holding back, they feel it. And they feel like, oh, that's beautiful, you know? And then you set the stage for the rest of the people to do it as well. So it is, somebody has to start doing it, and then others will follow. And it's something we need to practice, and we have to start doing it. That's why I love men's groups, because we practice that in these groups. And still in the end, like, we hold back to a certain extent because we are used to, it's not that we go from 0 to 100 immediately. Yeah, but it's baby steps. It's something we have to cultivate and learn and develop. But we can only learn and develop this if we do it regularly, and we experiment with it, and we get feedback, and we are committed to it. Yeah, and from that grows brotherhood, I think.
Yeah, and I also think that's okay that we still hold back. Like the important thing is that you make progress there, and you don't. It's not going to be like, all right, it's very difficult to talk about your vulnerable stuff, and all of a sudden you're able to do that. Like you make steps, and for some people it's frustrating because they concentrate on the part that they're not being able to do yet. So you can also focus on the stuff that you're improving at and be very proud about that. But anyhow, I think you said the same. Like you have your mentor of men. I don't know how to say it in one word, but you have your podcast and you have your posts and you write about it. But when you post on Facebook, like a lot of women, they react on it. Not men, though probably just as much men might read it, but they don't react to it. So they might all be the guys who feel like, well, like I long for, a close friend to talk about the stuff, but they're not the one initiating it. And
no, this is interesting. You mentioned this because I do get feedback from men, but it's little, it's not much. Mm-hmm. And when it's feedback, it's guys who read it.
Private.
And a lot of guys, most of the guys that read it, they never liked it. The guys who sent me a message, they never liked it. They didn't respond publicly.
Oh yeah.
But there's a secret hidden world there. And
so do you get conversations then, or is it just like a message like, okay, I don't like it with the reason?
No, it's usually like the stuff that I'm writing about. The guys are like, holy shit, dude. I so relate. And they're like, I might like I'm doing other stuff right now, but I might take some sessions from you later on. And
they like it.
Yeah, they like it. But it's usually they identify with it, a lot of the stuff I'm writing about. But I hardly see men publicly acknowledging it.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to remain hidden. But yeah, it's like one of them is a client now.
Yeah, I think so. To put it on a positive note, I do feel like maybe it's just me getting older, but I have the idea that I meet more men who are more able to talk about all these kind of stuff. So we've just touched, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah,
no doubt about that. Yeah.
And I just hope to inspire more guys with this work, and even my own sons, that they become more capable in going deeper and being more wholesome men, even vulnerable men, but that they'll be able to have really true brotherhood.
As I'm sure you do.
That's them. I'll have to open the door. Give me a second.
Right. Yeah.
Willen jullie erbij? Kom maar, we gaan afsluiten.
Papa, heb je dit meegenomen?
Ja, wacht even. Kijk. Hey. So, here they are.
Hi guys. How is it? How are you guys doing?
Hier,
ja.
Hang on.
Is goed.
Ja?
Oké. Hello.
Lekker buiten gespeeld.
We don't have sound. No, we don't have sound. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up. Yep.
Ga je het nog wachten, toch?
Okay, Yves, I think we should wrap it up.
Right.
We have a party in the building here. They came in with a lot of snacks, and we have bitterballen. Nice.
Oh, nice. Time to party. Yeah.
Anyway, man, thanks a lot. And any last remarks you want to make here?
The last one I think is like, for men to be able to go deeper in this brotherhood. It's like you're doing it for yourself, but for everyone around you. like you're doing it for your sons and for every intimate relationship you have. So yeah, and that's it.
They are really sabotaging the podcast now. They're trying to make munching sounds in the mic. So it's gonna be fucking ASMR disgusting sounds. Thanks guys.
Right.
No, don't do it. Stop it. Okay, I gotta wrap it up. Ciao, and thank you. And okay, I'm gonna kick some ass over here.
All right, man.
See you later, man. Thanks a lot.
See you later. Thanks for having me.
Doei.